We are Ole Miss Rebels. As Mississippi's flagship university, we dig deeper, see farther, work harder. We pioneered human organ transplants. We helped prove Einstein's theory of gravitational waves. We are conducting life-changing research that solves the problems of today. We are Ole Miss, transforming lives and the world.
Hey, welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. We're going to start in a few minutes, but I want to tell you to hit up our social sites, retweet, share, comment, like, do all of that stuff. It can only help us out and it'll make the show even better. But we're getting ready to give you a lot of good Ole Miss information, and I just thought I would tell you that because the POMcast is starting. Well, it's starting right now. Wait, no, that's a little early. It is starting right about now. All right, welcome to the POMcast on this Monday morning. I am your host, Stephen Willis. Thank you very much for joining us. Good morning, Trent, as well. I'm just in a really good mood after this weekend. Ole Miss just took care of business against LSU. Completely dominated that game other than the first quarter. Just completely dominated that game. It was Eli Manning Day. They retired number 10. Arch Manning was in attendance. All of a sudden, players are decommitting. It was the perfect weekend for Ole Miss recruiting-wise, and stories are starting to come out to that effect. So I'm really excited about most everything. But before we get started, I do want to tell you about Travel and Cruise World. That's 1-800-330-7461, 1-800-330-7461. Basically, what I want it to do was to have a resource for you in Central Florida. We're 18 months into this thing right now, and everybody needs a vacation. So I wanted to give you a resource. They can get you the same price that you can get online, but these people can tell you, it's like, hey, masks are required inside at Disney. They're not required at Universal. At the beaches, there's is a different thing as well. So these people can help you out and make sure your vacation is as good as it can be. So give them a call, 1-800-330-7461. Also, want to talk to you about bookatailgate.com. That is bookatailgate.com. That's Take It to the Grove. They can offer single game. They can do season packages. They can do whatever you need. They can hook you up with a tent if you have more people. They can rent you a TV for the tent. They can store your tailgating supplies in their warehouse. I mean, it's really good. They can even pick up your catering. Give them a call, 662-701-1177, bookatailgate.com. And let's see. Also, you can check our podcast. We are Positively Ole Miss. You can see it below. Those are some of the major things we are on. Leave us a 5-star review. You can say whatever you want to. Just leave a 5-star review. You can catch us on Twitter at @TheStephenWillis or at Ole Positively. You can catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast. We are on YouTube at Positively Ole Miss. Subscribe, hit the bell. You'll not only know that we're streaming, you'll know what we're streaming about. And we are on Twitch, Positively Ole Miss. All lowercase, all one word. Let's see. Yeah, go over there. Yeah, there it is. So that is that. So we've got a lot of stuff going in. That was a fun game, guys. That was a real fun game. That was one of the few times you can point to it in the probably since 2016, maybe 2015, you can actually say the defense won that game. Because we've been high-powered offense forever. You know, ever since we stopped with the Hugh Freeze stuff and went to Phil Longo, we've been able to put up points. But the defense has always been behind the 8 ball. When we started with Phil Longo, we also started with Wesley McGriff. Like Wesley, defense was a problem. And since then, he started bouncing back and forth system to system. And it was nice to see the defense really show out. Now, part of 2019, the offense was just so bad that the defense couldn't by itself win the game. But now the offense is good enough for if they have an off day, the defense steps up. This is a game that last year the team would have lost. This is a game that 2018 the team would have lost. 2017 the team would have lost. This is that game. The defense stepped up and completely dominated. LSU like 320 yards for the game, 77 yards rushing. And you can all point to one play that turned the game around. Now, Ole Miss came out for that game 2 up. You want to know what we mean by 2 up? That is what it looks like when you come out 2 up. It just wasn't there. It was discombobulated. There were too much adrenaline flowing in there. Too many decision makings. Once Tysheem Johnson intercepted that 4th down in the end zone, they settled down. Whenever they settled down, they went back and just did their job and absolutely took over the game. Now, I think you'll see this in a couple of spots. But this is a slow start for the second straight week. We didn't start fast against Tennessee, didn't start fast against LSU. It's not necessarily a cause for concern. Not necessarily. But going into Auburn, and this is going to be our most important game of the season, and this is not just because it's the next game of the season. This is the last time we leave the state of Mississippi in the regular season. Texas A&M, we should be favored in that game. If we get past this one, we have Liberty, A&M, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State. That's what November looks like. A&M's going to be difficult. Auburn's going to be difficult. The other ones can jump up and get you as well. But this game is absolutely huge. Because if we get past this game, if we walk out of Jordan-Hare Saturday night 7-1, it's all open to Ole Miss. Everything we dream of is open to Ole Miss if we walk out of Jordan-Hare 7-1. Now, this is one of the 3 games I predicted losses in the preseason. Whenever I was doing my game by game back in July, now obviously all of that has changed, but I predicted losses against Alabama, against Auburn, and against Texas A&M. Now things have changed since July. Those are definitely gettable games. I think Ole Miss is in a position to where I think Auburn is favored by 1 or 2, depending on the line service, and it will be bet up during the week because of Auburn people betting on the game. So that line's not going to go. But pay attention Saturday if it goes up or down, because that's the next round of sharps. Now, yesterday the line kind of stayed where it was, but now it's starting to get bet up. So I'm expecting Auburn to probably, by Saturday, be a 4 or a 5-point favorite, just because they're going to bet up those lines. And Ole Miss traditionally does not play very well in Jordan-Hare. Just doesn't. The last time we won was the last time we beat LSU. So this is one of those games. Hopefully Matt will get right. Hopefully Matt will get right and be more accustomed to what we are expected to. I give Kiffin a little bit of credit here, because since he doesn't talk about injuries and people just don't want to believe him what's going on, he told people at the beginning of the week about Matt. He actually talked about an injury, but nobody believed it. Nobody believed it. And he actually just told the truth. But Matt was severely limited Saturday. They deadened him up before the game. Everything's going on. They said by the second quarter he was really feeling it, but he couldn't push off to throw the ball. So it is what it is. But it was an absolute beatdown. Dominate from that interception on, it was complete and utter domination, to the point where I actually felt bad for the first time since I think the state game in 2008, but I actually felt bad for Max Johnson. It was one of those guys, I was saying he needed to get out of the game just because he was going to get hurt if he stayed in. So, yeah. Now, let's talk about the sights and sounds of the day. It was a nice day. It was a fun day. Eli Manning got his number 10 retired. There were former players everywhere. By the way, coming up a little bit later today at like 2 o'clock is Bill Flowers talking with Doug Ziegler, and it's about a minute long, and it's all about his touchdown catch in Baton Rouge in 2001. So it's about a minute long, but we have that. But all these former players came back, and props to Kiffin for making that happen and everything that was going on. And the stadium was sold out. The Grove was packed. I mean, it was the absolute perfect Ole Miss weekend. We haven't had a weekend like that since 2014. After everything's gone on, we've gotten back to that point. That's what everybody needs to realize. But with us having a day like that, we have gotten past that point. And with the probation and everything that went on in the late 2015s, it was a slog to get back, but we've gotten back. And with everything going on, I mean, you have former NFL players on the sideline. The same sideline you have recruits. It's beneficial. This is what Pete Carroll did at USC back in the early 2000s. He got the former players back involved. Put Keyshawn Johnson on the sideline for a time. Recruited the lights out. Performed on the field and built an absolute monster. That's what Lane Kiffin is doing here. Trent, I hope you enjoyed meeting Bill Saturday. Good dude. He likes to do a bunch of stuff for our channel, and we just really are happy about that. And you're right, I've never seen so many players, former players in attendance. It just felt like a defining day for Ole Miss. And I'm proud that 10's number got retired. Now, I like to joke around. It's like I was born after Archie. And not only that, by the time I was old enough to form memories of watching him play in the pros, he was retired. So that was about 84-ish that I could remember. When Eli became quarterback at Ole Miss, I was stationed overseas in Italy. So I didn't get to see him play then. So both of the Mannings, both of the most important people in regards to Ole Miss football, I have not really seen them play other than on TV, like AFN every now and then. During 2003, during that run, thank goodness, when Ole Miss was on CBS back to back to back, they showed that game each week, so it was pretty cool. But what I think we need to do, Saturday was so cool. And now a lot of what made it cool was the fact that it was a Manning Day and it was an Eli Manning Day. But I think we need to set a tradition for a former players day. Pick a game every year other than homecoming. Something that's supposed to be a bigger game during the year. So no homecoming, no Egg Bowl. And bring them back to campus and just treat them right, and put them on the sideline and do all things like that. I think next year we might play Georgia. Just a second. Let me see what's up. Of course, everything is subject to change because of the Texas and Oklahoma coming into the SEC, which means they're going to redo all of these things. But like next year, let's see, 2022. All right, next year we have Kentucky, we have Auburn. Good grief, that November next year is going to be a bear. We have Kentucky, we have Auburn. So take the Auburn game each year and we can make it a former players weekend. And then we have the alumni weekend, we have homecoming, we have numerous reasons to come back, but just pick a game and do that every year. And it could be a lot of fun to see. We're just going to blow through the break at the moment what we're talking about. Next, we have Auburn. It's the biggest game of the season. And it isn't just the biggest game of the season because it's the next game, because a lot of people like to use that from time to time. It's the biggest game of the season because it's the last time we leave the state. We have a 3-game homestand after this. We have the Egg Bowl after that. But if we come out of Jordan-Hare 7-1, everything's in front of us. It's all there to be done. You know, all these unranked people are going to come out of the woodwork and talk about what a number 10 team can't do. This weekend would go a long way for making that conversation small. I looked on Twitter, and Ole Miss is 10th in the country whenever they do the probability factors for the playoff. Ole Miss has a 7% chance of making the playoff right now. That's nuts. And if they keep winning, they beat Auburn, and then handle Liberty, and then they beat Texas A&M, and they run the table. Alabama can't slip up. They absolutely can't slip up. They might not. They're a good team. They're a great team. But that's a lot of pressure for them to deal with. It was a one-score game against Tennessee Saturday in Bryant-Denny. So that kind of pressure of nipping on their heels, but all of that has to happen after we take care of business this weekend. There are rumors of craziness happening on the plains this week. I don't know. I don't expect anything to happen. The J-Boy Show, Jake Crane, came out and said that he expects it to be non-starters. I've checked the boards. Not a lot of information is coming out. I expect them to, because they treat it just like Wayne treats the media. John, I agree with you. John says, I don't think Auburn is going to be able to score enough to beat Ole Miss. I kind of agree with him if Matt Corral is healthy. He was not healthy against LSU. We were limited offensively, and that actually shown. If LSU would have played a game similar to the way Tennessee played the game the week before, Ole Miss might have been in a little bit of trouble because Matt Corral was not there to take advantage of what was going on. But I do agree with that, John. If Matt Corral's healthy, I don't think Auburn can score enough to beat Ole Miss. And now, especially with the defense feeling good, that is great because Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter have made me nervous for a while playing tailback, especially with the track record that we have against the run. And these guys against LSU, 77 yards after they ran for like 10 miles the week before. After they ran for like 10 miles the week before, to hold them for 77 yards, that's got to be a confidence boost. Everybody jokes about Matt Corral for the Heisman, but the most important person for this team apparently is Jake Springer. Everybody needs to understand what's going on with Jake Springer. He is an emotional leader of that defense. He allows us to play. Like, let me try and put this into terms that you guys can understand. When Jake Springer comes back, we can play 3-3 stack defense stuff. And a lot of people plays the 3-3 stack. That's good against the run. It can handle everything that's going on. When Jake Springer is out, and it's hard for us to do the 3-3 stack because the outside box safeties are so undersized. You have Keidron Smith and Tysheem Johnson. You have a true freshman and a former cornerback on the outside. Jake Springer, his physicality, his box play, allows them to play a little bit differently. That's the reason you see us recruiting players like that quarterback from Little Rock. I think his name's Jalen White. He's 6'3". He's 200 pounds. He can run like a deer. Most people aren't going to recruit him as a linebacker. He's not a linebacker. And he's not a defensive back as well. But he's kind of a tweener. But he fits what we do. I kind of agree with that, John. Todd Grantham is probably on his way out at Florida after that LSU game. Because that was ridiculous. I think they ran that play like 12 straight times and Florida hadn't stopped it yet. It was utterly ridiculous. So, when you look at Auburn wants to run the ball. They want to, honestly, if you watch Auburn and LSU play each other, which happened the other day, it's kind of a mirror image of each other. They kind of do a little bit of the same stuff. So it's kind of a pro-style spread. It's not a super tempo spread. It's not a Tennessee. It's not an Arkansas. And it's definitely not an Ole Miss. It's kind of a relaxed tempo. So instead of getting a play off at 25 seconds like we do, they're like 17, 15. So you have time to make your checks, you have time to get your breath, and you have time for the defensive line to work. So I'm expecting Auburn to come out and try and pound the edges like everybody else has. Everybody wants to try and run the same stuff over and over again because that's what Alabama did and it worked. That's what Arkansas did and it worked. And the problem with those two games is that was before Jake Springer because, like I said, we can play a little bit differently and it looks a little bit differently when Jake Springer is in the game. He's a heck of a ball player, but he's an all-conference American player. He was a good player when he came in. It's not a surprise that he's good. He played the first half against Louisville. We shut him out. He got injured against Louisville, and all of a sudden Louisville started scoring, and people after that started scoring. Made our defense a little bit less good. He was the not losable cog. Then against Tennessee, he came back. We gave up 26 points to a team averaging 45. Defense played pretty well. 5 sacks. Against LSU, gave up 320 yards, 5 sacks, 3 calls turnovers. Tysheem Johnson, by the way, I told you, he has honey badger qualities. He is a super athlete. He is going to be a fantastic player. He's just a true freshman right now. But you can see him maturing and what he can do defensively. That pick against LSU, now, he probably should have dropped the ball. We'd have got it at the 3 if he was going to intercept it, try and go out of bounds in the end zone. But it is what it is. We ended up getting 3 in that game, but that play was the one that turned the game around. But Auburn, Bo Nix is going to run around and play a little bit of backyard football. That's what they have been doing recently, is playing a little bit of backyard football. And that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. Defensively is Derek Mason. It's going to look a lot like Vanderbilt has in the past. Not necessarily like Vanderbilt looked like last year, but in the past. Remember, Derek Mason is the guy on the defensive side of the ball that really was the kryptonite to Oregon when he was at Stanford. So he understands how to handle these RPO systems and these spread offenses. Now, the difference between what we do and what they do is the sheer physicality that we come with. People look at spread teams and assume they are finesse teams. Obvious, they find out shortly after we are a physical ball club. And we have taken Arkansas and Tennessee that also does that same thing, and they've come out on top twice. Against LSU, by the end of the game, they just wanted it over. And I don't blame them. The season's over for them. They fired the coach. They should have hired an interim in there because it's hard to keep a team together without hiring an interim. Whenever Houston Nutt got fired in 2011, they wanted to hire an interim, but the only interim they had was Gunnar Brewer. There's a group of people that will always support anybody with the last name Brewer, so they didn't do it. They let Houston Nutt coach those last games. And against Louisiana Tech, they beat us 24-3, and it could have been 48-3. Completely rolled over the players. They come out with a little burst in the beginning, and as soon as something goes wrong, they give up. So LSU fans, John, understand what's coming, especially against Alabama, especially against Arkansas. Is probably what is coming. So protect players that need to be protecting. Max Johnson's a good quarterback. I just don't think that was a very good offensive line. I think Sam Williams and Cedric Johnson was able to just get pressure with 3 men. It was ridiculous. John says there's really no qualified interim on LSU staff, and it's going to cost a bunch of money to buy out another coach's contract and pay off 0 plus paying a new coach. Yeah, absolutely right. And 2020, the money lost in 2020 is going to affect what's happening in a coaching search. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens on the Bayou. I think LSU is going to move towards, I think, Mel Tucker or Billy Napier, somewhere in that thing. I think if they can get Billy Napier, they would. I think Mel Tucker might be a little bit too rich for them at the time being, because they do have a Title IX going on. They do have the NCAA just camped out around. Might not be anything, but it took 6 years for them to get Ole Miss. So, yeah. So John's telling us they already have a ton of dead money from O's failed assistant hires. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah, I know Matt. I think I've met him once or twice back in the days. He's a high roller down in Baton Rouge in the media. So, real quick, I do want to go. Let's see. Take a chance. He thinks LSU is scared to take a chance on Napier. He wants somebody from a bigger school that has proved themselves more. I do. That's the reason I think it would be. They want Mel Tucker because they've gone to the Michigan State well before. Yeah, when it comes to LSU, they were also boosters were lobbying Woodward for Mike Bianca to take the LSU baseball job. And it turned out to be nothing. I don't think Kiffin is going anywhere, and I don't think he's going to go into that situation. But they're going to try, and it's flattering that they're interested in doing something like that. Looking at lines this weekend, normally we have a nice, fun graphic for lines. But this weekend, this morning, I had to do the Bill Flowers thing, so I didn't have time to do that. So, Kentucky is either a 1-point favorite, it's a pick'em, or State's favored by a half point right now. Absolutely fascinating. I want to watch this game. It's at 7 o'clock, though, so it's on during the Auburn game. But it should be a lot of interest. It should be fairly interesting with that defense and Mike Leach and all the things kind of coalescing around this game. This is a game that Kentucky should be able to do pretty well. That's fine. I want to see Mississippi State play with that urgency, like an end of the game type thing. So I'm interested to seeing about that. Ole Miss is a 2 to 2.5 point underdog to Auburn. Like I told you, the line was going to move toward Auburn during the week because people are going to bet on Auburn regardless. They're going to bet emotionally. It opened at Auburn -1. Let's see. Yeah, John, when it comes to Kiffin, we have him for as long as we have him, but it's like I tell people all the time. There's going to be a lot of unranked teams talking about us losing Kiffin, about what a top 10 Ole Miss can't do. And if we beat Auburn, the playoff and every possibility is available to him. If we pay him, there's no reason to leave. It just is what it is. This is not exactly a little Ole Miss. 3 out of the last 4 head coaches at Ole Miss have had a top 10 ranking. So, I mean, it can be done here. So I'm not really worried about it either way, but it is what it is. It's not a situation where I think if you underestimate Ole Miss in this situation, you're doing so at your peril. Because the fit up here for him is absolutely perfect. We allow him to live in Boca Raton during the offseason. It's a national recruiting now. You don't need a recruiting base. We're getting players. Tysheem Johnson's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Taiwan Malone's from New Jersey. We're recruiting nationally, and we've hired assistants that can fill those regions quite well. I mean, it's not like a Knoxville situation where you just, you look around 300 miles around the campus, there's just nothing there. So, all right, let's see. Georgia and Florida. Georgia's favored by 14. The line hadn't moved. It opened at 14. So, and also I think that's about it, isn't it? Yeah, Alabama and LSU is off. Florida and Georgia's playing. All right. Oh, also, Clemson's favored by 10 over Florida State before I get out of here. Clemson's favored by 10. Clemson is one of 2 programs in Power 5 that has not scored 20 points this season. They're favored by 10. So that's predicting a 20-10 game. I just don't get that one. I just don't get that one. Also, Michigan has gone up. It's opened at 2. They're favored by 4.5 going into the game with Michigan State. We've reached that time of the season where the Big Ten schools are going to start chewing each other up. So when you look at the top 10, let's see, money line. Just one second, I'll tell you, John. Let's see. You can get Clemson minus 430. You can get Florida State plus 320. The consensus of it is 380 and 310, though. Minus 380 for Clemson, plus 310 for Florida State. But anyway, we need to get out of here. We've actually gone over our time. Thank you. We've been having a conversation with John. Really nice of him to stop by today, talking a little ball, especially after this weekend. He's every now and then watches the show and enjoys it quite well. So thank you very much, John, for tuning in. And like I said, next week we'll do Know Thy Enemy, Auburn. We'll do all of that, and we'll start working through the week tonight. Beast of the East with Corey Burton and Craig Ladd talking about the Eastern Division and the SEC. They're probably going to talk a little bit about Tennessee, I imagine. They're also probably going to talk a little bit about Georgia. So it could be a lot of fun. So tune in for that tonight at 8:30 Central. And they will make you more informed, I guess. I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. So I'm very excited, very happy this week. This week is a big week for Ole Miss football. Don't forget that it's not. So, all right. I will talk to you later. Thank you very much for tuning in today. And as always, hotty toddy.